My name is Serena Vale, 28 years old. I handed my brother a sealed envelope at our family's Christmas exchange and told myself to keep my mouth shut no matter what happened. Inside was rent, 3 months covered, $2,400 in crisp hundreds, no card, no sermon, no strings. I'd sorted the stacks with paper clips the night before, the way you fold bandages before stepping into a battlefield you swore you wouldn't enter again. Jake didn't even look curious. He tore the seal lazily, like he already knew a gift from me wasn't worth rushing. When the bills fell into his palm, a quiet murmur rippled through the room. He raised his eyebrows, held the cash up like a prop, and said loud enough to reach the kitchen, "Tries to compensate for the fact that she's not needed by this family." A beat, and then it hit. Laughter, real, full-throated. My dad clapped like he'd just heard a punchline. Mom giggled and covered her mouth. Aunt Sharon wheezed. Somewhere in the din, someone muttered, "Savage," like it was a compliment. No one said thank you. Not even a "this helps." It was as if $2,400 simply grew on the family tree, ripe for picking. I stood there with an empty mug of cold coffee thinking, this is what I get for trying to make everyone's mess look tidy. Jake let the envelope dangle from his fingers. I reached out, slipped it cleanly from his hand, and tucked it into my coat pocket. "Useful to know," I said. Silence collapsed the room. Plates stopped clinking. A candy cane slid off a paper napkin and tapped the hardwood. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I just pulled on my jacket. "Serena, don't," Mom said first, her hostess smile cracking. "It was a joke." "Come on," Dad added, already annoyed that the party rhythm had been broken. "He didn't mean anything. Sit down, eat." Aunts chimed in like backup singers. "Let's not ruin Christmas." "You're taking this the wrong way. You know how your brother is." "I do," I said, slipping my scarf around my neck. "That's the problem." What they didn't see was the ledger I'd been keeping in my head for 2 years. Not the dollar amounts. Those were forgettable to everyone but me. But the shape of it. The late-night transfers to cover their rent, the surprise utility bills, the temporary help that calcified into expectation. There was always a reason Dad couldn't work yet, and Mom needed just a little bridge. Jake, at 23, sleeping, gaming, calling himself a late bloomer while I paid off his bounce checks and learned more about his bank fees than his resume. I thought about Adam, my boyfriend, and how he'd left yesterday for Vermont to be with his family. "Come with me," he'd said, but I'd felt obligated to show up here instead, to play the reliable daughter in a house that laughed when I tried to help. His mom had even texted me a photo of a pie cooling on their windowsill with a note, "Wish you were here." It wasn't dramatic love. It was ease. It was what mine never had. And then, like a chill that chooses when to enter, I remembered a DM Adam's ex-girlfriend had sent me a week ago. "A hope you and Adam have a cozy holiday," with a smiley face that looked like it was carved from ice. We weren't friends. Not really. Just a ghost hovering at the edges of his life, liking old photos and occasionally planting a little seed that said, "I still exist." Mom tried again, brittle and bright. "If you could just—" "This is the last month I'm paying your bills," I said, simple as laying a card on a table. "Starting next month, Jake figures out his rent. I'm not the family banker anymore." The shouting picked up fast, strings swelling beneath a solo. Dramatic. Overreacting. It was a joke. Grow thicker skin. I didn't argue. I didn't explain that I'd been subsidizing their adulthood for so long, I'd forgotten the sound of my own. I didn't tell them I'd been hiding receipts from Adam because shame grows in quiet pockets. I didn't say I was tired of being a function, an ATM with mascara. I opened the front door. Cold air poured in, honest and unperfumed. Behind me, Dad's voice hardened. "So you're just going to let your family drown?" "I didn't throw anyone in the water," I said. "I'm just not going to be the raft." I stepped out without slamming the door. The quiet click was louder. The fallout started before I'd pulled into my driveway. Missed calls, stacked like bricks. Mom's voice notes arrived first, the performance monologue I knew by heart. "You embarrassed your brother on Christmas. We've been through a lot. You've always been the one we could count on." She skipped the parts about the envelope and the insult, neatly editing the narrative so I was the problem for reacting. I let it sit, the way you let a pot boil over and then just turn off the burner. By day 2, the script shifted tone. A text from Mom. "Your dad is trying to talk to you like a man. Don't shut him out." I stared at the phrase, "like a man," until the words unraveled. Power, repackaged as perspective. "Fine. Come to dinner," they said. We'll talk. No yelling. Just family. I said yes because I've learned the fastest way to end a conversation is to let it finish itself. When I showed up, Jake was hunched over his phone, thumbs twitching, a creature from the land of unread job postings. Mom staged normalcy, bustling between the kitchen and the dining table as if this were Thanksgiving, not a damage control meeting. Dad tried small talk about the stock market, the punchline of the century since I'd paid their electric bill 3 months straight. After dinner, Dad cleared his throat and started a speech on perspective, how money complicates things, how he was sorry if it got out of hand. Then the pitch surfaced, smooth as butter. If you could just help us through February, we'll be sorted. He had a lead on a job. Jake might take a course. Bad timing, that's all. There it was, the belief that my love was measured in bills, that I could be coaxed into one last transfer if the story was sentimental enough. I told them it wasn't about one envelope. I told them about 2 years of bailing out a boat everyone else kept drilling holes into. What did I get for it? Mockery, dismissal, a family chorus laughing at the only person in the room who had learned to swim. Jake didn't look up until I finished. Nobody asked you to, he muttered. I laughed once, because the truest things sometimes sound like jokes. You had the luxury not to, I said. I stood, set my house key on their hallway table like a small silver period, and told them they had 30 days to figure out how to function like adults. Mom cried softly. Dad looked offended that I dared to end the meeting without a handshake. Jake resumed scrolling. On the drive home, the road was a black ribbon, and my thoughts were clean for the first time in months. Adam called to say his nieces had demolished a gingerbread house and that his dad wanted me to fix a wonky shelf in the garage when I visited next. They're excited you're coming for New Year's, he said, warm and easy. I could hear voices in the background, overlapping, ordinary, uncoiled from need. He didn't ask what happened at my parents'. He just listened to the shape of my breathing and said, I'll pick you up from the airport. We'll handle everything else after. When I got home, I placed the sealed envelope on my kitchen counter and turned off the overhead light. The room went soft, shadowed, honest. My phone buzzed again. A notification from social media. Adam's ex had liked an old photo of his from last fall, the one where he and I were laughing, out of focus, a little blurred at the edges. It was nothing and a message at the same time. I let it sit and didn't bite. If there was a test coming, I would pass it by doing nothing at all. I slid the envelope into a drawer I rarely opened and locked the door behind me, the key turning with a small, decisive click. Some breaks are loud. Mine wasn't. It was the sound of stopping before you shatter. The next morning, the fallout sharpened. My phone lit up like a pinball machine, missed calls stacked on top of unread texts. Mom's voice notes came first, her talent for guilt, unspooling like a script she'd memorized. You embarrassed your brother on Christmas, Serena. You know he's sensitive. This family has been through so much. We've always counted on you. She never mentioned the envelope, never mentioned the insult. She edited me out of the story until only the overreaction remained. I let it all sit unread. By day 2, the tone changed. A text. Your dad is trying to talk to you like a man. Don't shut him out. Like a man, as if that was the currency of legitimacy. I stared at the words until they blurred, then typed back, Fine. Dinner. One time. When I walked into the house that night, everything looked staged. The table was set too carefully. The roast smelled too perfect. Jake slumped at the end of the couch, eyes on his phone, posture radiating indifference. Mom scurried between the kitchen and the dining table, trying too hard to conjure normal. Dad attempted small talk about the stock market, which landed like a bad joke, considering I'd paid their electric bill for 3 months straight. Dinner passed in a blur of forced clinks and lukewarm conversation until Dad cleared his throat. His speech started with the word perspective, a word people use when they want to disguise excuses as wisdom. Money complicates things, he said. Maybe it got out of hand the other night. We're sorry if it did, but it's just timing, Serena. If you could help us through February, we'll have things sorted. I've got a lead on a job. Jake's thinking of taking a course. It wasn't an apology, it was a pitch. I put my fork down. This isn't about one envelope. It's about 2 years of covering rent, groceries, utilities, fixing your car, paying off Jake's overdrafts. And what did I get for it? Laughter. Dismissal. You treated me like a walking ATM. Jake finally looked up, smirk tugging at his lip. Nobody asked you to. A laugh broke from my chest before I could stop it. That's the luxury you had, Jake. You never had to ask. You knew I'd do it. I stood, slid my house key onto the hallway table, and said, "You've got 30 days. After that, you figure out how to function like adults." Mom's eyes welled instantly. "Serena, don't do this." Dad leaned back, jaw tight. "You're overreacting." Jake returned to his phone, already scrolling. I left without a goodbye. The door clicked shut, and for the first time in years, it felt like I'd drawn a line no one else could cross. On the drive home, Adam called. His voice was warm, steady. "My dad says the shelf's finally fixed thanks to you. You've got fans in Vermont." In the background, I heard laughter, the kind that doesn't cut anyone down. He didn't ask about my family. He just said, "Come here for New Year's. Let them stew. You deserve peace." Peace. I wasn't sure I believed in the word anymore, but the way he said it made me want to try. The next week brought silence, the kind designed to gnaw at you, to make you wonder if you'd been too harsh. I filled the quiet with work, with laundry, with scrolling through photos of Adam's family's Christmas feast. His mom had baked pies. His nieces had smeared frosting on their cheeks. They looked messy, loud, alive. Then the text resumed. "Rent due in 5 days. Please send what you can." I Venmo'd them Waller, caption, "More than I can afford." The message sat there like a tiny dagger. It wasn't about the dollar. It was about telling them the bank was closed. Days later, I found myself at Adam's apartment. His mom had called asking if I wanted to come for dinner. I went, mostly because the walls of my own place felt too tight. Adam's dad had me help in the garage first, tightening screws on a workbench. He handed me a beer afterward and said, "Good hands. Patient. That's rare." Dinner was nothing special. Meatloaf, salad, mashed potatoes. But it was the first time in weeks I felt like a person instead of a utility. They asked about my job, my hobbies, the music I liked. Adam's mom laughed when I said banana bread was my weakness. 2 days later, she dropped off a loaf at Adam's place with a note. "Made too much. Thought of you." It wasn't grand, it wasn't dramatic, it was human. That night, I scrolled Instagram before bed and saw a like from Adam's ex-girlfriend on one of his old photos. It was from months ago, one where he and I were laughing at a fall festival, blurry and unposed. She didn't comment, just tapped like. And it felt like she'd thrown a pebble against my window to remind me she was out there, watching. I set my phone down, told myself it was nothing, told myself Adam was here, with me, and that mattered more. New Year's Eve came. Adam's family invited me to their cousin's brunch the next morning. I expected stiff smiles, the polite tolerance of strangers. Instead, they pulled me into conversation about bad first dates, travel disasters, favorite desserts. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody mocked me for giving. Midway through the laughter, my phone buzzed under the table, a text from Jake. "Can you spot me $400 for a new TV? Ours is busted." No greeting, no apology, just a demand. I sent him $1. Caption, "Should be plenty." He never replied. The silence after wasn't sharp this time, it was cleansing. January came, and with it, something unfamiliar. Stillness. My family's noise had always been background static. Without it, I could hear myself think. Adam's mom started texting me recipes. His dad asked if I'd help him fix shelves at his cousin's place. His sister dropped by unannounced with extra coffee. They weren't using me, they were including me. But I also knew storms never stay gone. My family's quiet was too clean, too careful. It was the kind of pause that comes before thunder. One evening, a knock at my apartment door proved me right. My dad. No text, no warning. Just him, standing in a thin windbreaker against the January chill. He didn't wait for an invite. He stepped inside like he still had the right. "Serena," he said, standing in the middle of my living room. "We need to talk. It's serious." He didn't sit, didn't look at me, just got straight to it. 2 months behind on the house. Mortgage company calling. Final notice taped to the door that morning. They needed $8,000 to stop foreclosure. I didn't answer right away. He filled the silence with justifications. Looking for work, disability case still pending, Jake going through something. I asked one question. "Where's Jake right now?" He looked at the floor. In his room, playing something, of course. Then he looked up, desperation carving lines in his face. "We haven't always shown it, but we appreciate everything you've done. This isn't easy to ask, but if we lose the house, your mom, she won't survive it." I shook my head slowly. I'm sorry, I really am, but I'm not loaning you anything. Not $8,000. Not $800. Not eight. He stared at me, eyes narrowing, like he couldn't compute the refusal. So that's it? You're just going to let your family drown? No, I said. I didn't let anyone drown. I was the one you all clung to while you refused to swim. I'm done being the life raft. His jaw clenched. Then he said the thing that made the air turn brittle. I should have known you'd turn your back when things got hard. I opened the door and held it wide. Get out. He left without another word. The next day, Mom sent a group text. A crisis plea, thinly veiled. Hi, family. We're in a bit of trouble and trying to raise funds to save the house. Anything helps. God bless. I read it 3 times. No accountability, just performance. A few relatives chimed in with token offers. $100 here, prayers there. No one asked why Jake, fully grown and unemployed, wasn't selling his sneakers or his gaming rig. 3 days later, Jake texted me. Hey, things are bad. I'm selling my PC and trying to scrape what I can. Can you help cover the rest? You'll get it back, I swear. I replied with one word, no. His response was instant. So you're really going to let us lose the house? Wow. I put the phone down without typing another letter. That weekend, Adam's cousin invited us to a birthday dinner. His family welcomed me with smiles, cake, and casual warmth. No one asked what I could provide. They just pulled out a chair. That was when I felt it, the tectonic shift between where I came from and where I was headed. By the end of January, I thought maybe the storm had passed. The mortgage plea had come and gone. Jake's "wow" text still sat in my phone, unanswered. My parents hadn't called again. The quiet was almost suspicious. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a link. No greeting, no explanation. Just a GoFundMe page. The title, Help Us Save Our Home. The photo, the house I grew up in, its shutters faded, the porch sagging. Goal, $8,000. The description read, Unexpected hardship has left our family in crisis. Any amount helps. Please help us keep our home. There was no mention of Jake, no mention of years of mismanagement, no mention of me. I clicked donate, typed in $1, and hit send. Anonymous. No note. It was the cleanest no I'd ever given. For days after, I checked the page occasionally. Donations trickled in. $50 from an aunt, $25 from a neighbor, a few comments that read, praying for your family, or hope you get through this. The total crawled towards $740 before stalling. I stopped checking. Instead, I leaned into the life that was quietly unfolding elsewhere. Adam's family kept pulling me in, slowly, without fanfare. His dad invited me over to help with a new workbench. His mom texted, bring Serena to Sunday dinner, as if I'd always been on the guest list. His little cousin asked if I'd teach him how to drive stick shift come summer. They didn't treat me like an outsider. They didn't make me prove my worth in cash. They just included me. It felt disorienting at first, like walking on stable ground after years at sea. But my old life wasn't finished clawing at the edges. Jake texted me one night with a screenshot of a flat-screen TV. Price, $399.99. His caption, you could help. $400 isn't much for you. I didn't sigh. I didn't feel anger. I just sent $1. Caption, still too much. He never replied. The silence after wasn't cruel. It was clarifying. Meanwhile, Adam's cousin Brian pulled me aside at a family cookout. We were standing by the grill, smoke curling into the winter air. I heard you've got IT and project management experience, like he said. My firm's looking for someone dependable. Less travel, better pay. Interested? I blinked. I didn't know I was on anyone's radar. He shrugged. People remember how you make them feel. That counts more than resumes. We talked for an hour. By the end, I had a tentative offer. That night, I sat on Adam's couch staring at nothing. When I finally told him, he grinned and kissed the top of my head. Told you they'd like you. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like theft, like I was taking something that wasn't meant for me, a family that wasn't mine, a chance handed over beers. I was still untangling that guilt when the ex-girlfriend slipped back into the picture. Her name was Marissa, pretty, sharp, the kind of woman who curated her life online like a storefront. She dated Adam years ago, but she never really left the background. A like here, a comment there. That week, she posted a photo of herself at the very lake house Adam's family owned. Caption, best memories made here. The comments poured in. Inside jokes, tagged cousins, even Adam's aunt chiming in with a heart emoji. I felt the sting, quiet but undeniable. When I showed Adam the post, he rolled his eyes. She's always been like that. She wants attention. Don't give it to her. I nodded, but my chest felt heavy. Because what if his family still saw her as part of the picture? What if I was just a placeholder until the nostalgia got strong enough? The doubt simmered through the weekend. At brunch, Adam's aunt asked me casually how work was going. Then she added, "Marissa said you're in between things right now. Must be stressful." The words hit me like a dart. I kept my smile pinned in place, but my mind spun. Marissa had been talking about me to his family, undermining me with that subtle, careful poison. Later in the car, I told Adam. His jaw tightened. "She doesn't know anything about you. I'll handle it." I wanted to believe him, but part of me couldn't help wondering if poison, once poured, ever really goes away. Back at my apartment, I scrolled through my old messages again. My mom's pleas, Jake's barbed demands, my dad's silence. It all felt like a pattern, a cycle of people taking, twisting, rewriting. And now, even here, in this family that had offered me warmth, a ghost from Adam's past was trying to rewrite my role. I closed the threads, deleted them one by one. I wasn't going to fight on two fronts anymore. Adam's voice broke the quiet. "Hey." He handed me a mug of tea, warm and steady. "We're building something here. Don't let her pull you back into what you left." I nodded, holding the mug until the heat seeped into my fingers. The truth was, I didn't want to be the raft anymore. Not for my family, not for ghosts. If they wanted to drown, if she wanted to stir the water, I was done jumping in. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. Because storms never announce themselves. They build quietly while you convince yourself you're safe. February blurred into March, and for the first time in years, I didn't wake each day braced for the next demand. My family's noise had quieted to a hum. Jake hadn't texted since the TV stunt. My mom's group messages had gone silent. Even my dad, usually the one to show up at my door when desperation peaked, stayed away. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like standing in the eye of a storm. One night after work, I walked into my apartment and found Adam sitting at my table, sleeves rolled, papers spread. "Brian's firm sent the contract," he said, tapping the folder. "It's good, Serena. You should take it." I slid into the chair opposite him, eyes scanning the lines. Higher salary, less travel, flexibility. Everything I thought I'd never be offered. "Do you want it?" he asked. "I think so," I whispered. "It feels stolen." "Not stolen," Adam corrected softly. "Earned. You've carried everyone else for years. It's your turn." His certainty steadied me. I signed. That weekend, Adam's family hosted a cookout to celebrate. I showed up expecting polite applause, maybe a toast. Instead, they greeted me with ribs, laughter, and easy questions. No one mentioned money. No one reminded me of past failures. They just raised glasses. Adam's dad clinked his beer bottle against mine and said, "To Serena, for knowing when to walk away and when to start again." The words landed deeper than I expected. I smiled, said thank you, and for once didn't feel like I was being measured. But shadows have long arms. A few days later, I noticed a missed call from my mom. No voicemail. Just the call, sitting on my screen like a thorn. The next morning, a text. "Can we talk? Nothing bad. Just talk." For a second, old instincts flared, the urge to smooth it over, to make things easier. Instead, I forwarded it to Adam. His reply came instantly. "Your life's quieter now. Keep it that way." He was right. But the ghost didn't just come from my side. At Adam's cousin's baby shower, I caught Marissa's name floating in the kitchen chatter. His aunt leaned close, voice syrupy. Marissa always used to help with the decorations. She had such a knack for it. Her eyes slid to me, waiting for a reaction. I kept my smile fixed, but inside, fire burned. This was how it worked. Small, careful comparisons. The X woven back into conversations until she felt inevitable. That night, I told Adam, his jaw tightened. "She's playing games, but I don't care about her. I care about you." "Do they know that?" I asked. "They will," he said, eyes steady. The next weekend at his family's lake house, Marissa showed up. Not invited, not expected, but somehow there. She slipped in with practiced ease, hugging cousins, laughing too loudly. When her eyes landed on me, they flicked over my outfit, my posture, everything, before softening into a sweet smile. "Serena, right?" she said, as if she hadn't liked half my boyfriend's old photos in the last 6 months. "Adam and I used to love it here. Best memories." The air around us tightened. I braced myself for Adam to hesitate, to let her words linger. Instead, he stepped closer, arm sliding naturally around my waist. That's in the past, he said evenly. Serena's part of my present and my future. Marissa's smile faltered, just for a second. Then she excused herself, retreating toward the fire pit. My lungs filled again. Later, as we walked by the dock, Adam squeezed my hand. You see, ghosts only have power if you let them. She can haunt the edges all she wants. I'm not opening the door. For the first time, I believed him. Meanwhile, my parents made one last play. Early March, a message pinged, a photo of the house with a caption. We're losing it. This is your last chance to help. I stared at it, then I typed, no, sent it, deleted the thread. 2 days later, Jake texted from a new number. You're really just going to let us fall apart? I didn't reply. The silence after wasn't heavy anymore. It was relief. Spring came slowly. Daffodils sprouted near the sidewalks. Children shouted in the park. And I realized months had passed without a single bill tied to my name that wasn't my own. Adam's family invited me everywhere. Cookouts, birthdays, lazy Sundays. His mom asked me to help with baby shower errands. His dad asked my opinion on a new set of tools. They didn't see me as a paycheck or a placeholder. They saw me. One afternoon, after a casual Sunday lunch, Adam's mom handed me a small box. We found this cleaning the attic. Thought you should have it. Inside was a Polaroid. Me and Adam at Thanksgiving months ago. I was mid-bite, laughing, messy. Adam was pointing at something off camera, his eyes crinkled. We kept it, she said softly, because that's the day we realized you fit in. Tears stung my eyes before I could stop them, not because of the photo itself, but because someone thought to remember me, to frame me in a moment I didn't even know mattered. I placed the box on the shelf in my living room, next to a plant Adam swore wasn't dying. Every time I walked past, I felt the quiet weight of being seen. Weeks later, as we sat by a fire at the lake house, Adam leaned in. Do you miss them? I thought about it longer than I expected, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I finally understood the real question. I miss who I hoped they'd be, I said, but that version of them didn't exist. I was just too close to see it. He nodded once. Good. That night, when he drifted off beside me, I scrolled through my phone one last time. Old texts, old pleas, old poison. Then I hit delete. Every number, every thread, gone. There's a line you cross when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop waiting for someone else to change, when you realize you already have. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hoping. I was free. And for the first time, that was enough.